The president has arrived, flanked by the South African National Defence Force, and he is set to give that keynote address today. But what is it exactly that the president says to South Africa 29 years into democracy, when while we are a country that certainly has described itself as resilient many, many times, we are also a country that at the moment is facing tremendous challenges? What is it exactly that the president could say as he takes the podium? We're expecting as well that there'll obviously be the singing of the national anthem, and there's always that poignant moment before when you're able to really see the work of the SANDF with that 21 gun salute as well.
Well, quite a poignant moment here as well, and Naledi, considering that Cyril Ramaphosa was a part of the delegation that worked on the constitution of the country, and of course leading up to that moment of the 27th of April 1994, where South Africans queued up to go and vote. And as Ntantla Kgatlana said a bit earlier on, also marking the death of apartheid, that is now speaking about apartheid and apartheid policies. However, though, the ramifications and the implications of apartheid still staying with South Africa. One of the ANC's policies, for instance, is around the apartheid spatial planning that needs to be done away with. Earlier on, we also heard some of the community members speaking about them feeling marginalized, speaking here about the community of the colored community here in South Africa. In the meantime, let's take you live then, listen into the 21 gun salute.
Ladies and gentlemen, you may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, the fly past and air display will now commence. Ladies and gentlemen, the appointed South African Air Force Fly Past Coordinator for the Freedom Day Celebration 2023 is Lieutenant Colonel Levi Mkhotsi, the Flight Safety Officer at Directorate Aviation Safety. Together with him are the two ground liaison officers, Major Danny Malan, the pilot at 41 Squadron Air Force Base Waterkloof, and Lieutenant Adibao Ramusele, Air Traffic Controller at Air Force Base Waterkloof. Ladies and gentlemen, for today's fly past, we will be seeing one Hawk Mark 120 aircraft operated by 85 Combat Flying School, which is located at Air Force Base Makado. approaching from west to east, and the leader of this hawk is Major Josimang Siejo, call sign Cypher, the pilot attack instructor on Hawk at 85 Combat Flying School. Together with him is Captain Wimberani Makado, call sign Morpheus. Ladies and gentlemen, the Hawk Mark 120 aircraft is the South African Air Force transonic lead-in fighter trainer, encompassing ideal handling characteristics for combat fighter pilot training and their role as the guardians of the South African airspace in defense of the South Africans' freedom and sovereignty. The estimated time of arrival here is exactly 1041 Bravo time. We'll be approaching from the west to the east. In the next few seconds, we'll be seeing the Hawk Mark 120 lead-in fighter trainer. Ladies and gentlemen, the Hawk Mark 120. He is now doing a quick right-hand turn orbit. He will be coming in for the last run-in. He is currently doing 360 knots, which is exactly 666 kilometers per hour at an altitude of 300 feet above ground level. Ladies and gentlemen, the commander of this aircraft, Major Josimang Siejo, call sign Cypher, is 35 years old. He was born and bred in Mangaung, Bloemfontein. He joined the South African Air Force at age 18, and he also flew the Gripen and the Astra. Major Siejo is married, and together they are blessed with 2 kids. Ladies and gentlemen, Major Siejo, being the pilot attack instructor, that is the highest qualification awarded to the South African Air Force fighter pilots. This means that Major Siejo can lead the entire formation to a combat zone, as well as training new fighter pilots in all aspects. The Hawk is now on the second and last run-in, ladies and gentlemen. Together with Major Siejo in the Hawk is Captain Humberani Makado, call sign Morpheus. This gentleman was born and bred in Tianda village, Venda, Limpopo province in 1989. He matriculated in 2006 at Ndamurereni Secondary. Captain Makado joined the South African Air Force in 2008 as the airspace control operator, and later remastered in 2015 and qualified as a navigator in July 2018. Here is the Hawk for the Ladies and gentlemen, I passed for the Freedom Day celebration 2023. I thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the final compliment. Military spectators are to salute on the command national salute, and civilian male spectators are to remove their headdress.
group about it.
Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes the Freedom Day celebration parade. Thank you for your attendance and enjoy the rest of your day.
Right, well, there you have it. Quite a show there by the South African National Defence Force, really bringing us that military precision that normally precedes Freedom Day commemorations. And in just a few moments, I suppose that program is set to start. And we are expecting that President Cyril Ramaphosa will be taking to the podium and delivering the keynote address, the Freedom Day address today as South Africa commemorates 29 years of democracy.
Well, certainly, and as I've indicated a bit earlier on as well, quite important also for the president, considering, of course, that he was part of that delegation that worked on the interim constitution as well as the final constitution that led up to that moment back in 1994. On the 27th of April, which ushered in our democracy. Some people, though, Naledi, questioning what freedom really means for them now in 2023, and a bit earlier on, as you heard from Reverend Mushe as well, he speaks about issues relating to the quality of water, for instance, and these are basic services that we are speaking about here. Also, the availability of electricity, and indeed, during apartheid, of course, electricity was not available to all South Africans, and there are many communities, especially black communities, who were deprived from access to that electricity, which has now been expanded during the democratic dispensation. But with that expansion, it also came, unfortunately, load shedding.
No, you touch on a lot of the poor and black people in South Africa not being able to access electricity many years ago, and certainly now an issue that we have load shedding. But one also reflects on what this day means in South Africa 29 years ago. If you go back to South Africa exactly 29 years ago, there was so much hope in the country. I think many of us go back and remember the snaking queues of South Africans who came out in their numbers wanting to cast their vote and usher in a new South Africa. And 29 years later, when we go into elections, you certainly are seeing those numbers having dwindled. I mean, the last local government elections, a real increase in the electorate coming out to cast their vote. And one wonders how much thought is given to what the 27th of April really means, and how important of a day this was 29 years ago, when thousands, millions of South Africans came out to cast their votes. And, so much exuberance and the electric atmosphere in the country all those years ago.
Yep. Quite interesting now that you raised the point about the elections back in 1994. And next year will be 30 years of our democracy. But also next year will be a general election that will be taking place. And with the general election that will be taking place as well, people looking at some of the political parties that have sprung up, the independent candidates now also being allowed to participate in those elections. And I wonder whether those developments would actually spur more of the electorate on to actually say that maybe perhaps this time around, let me go out to vote. the IEC saying that we'll have a record high number of political parties that will be contesting the general elections next year. Over 200 political parties that have been registered. We now just await the number of independent candidates that will be registering to participate in those elections. And remember that with the 2021 local government elections as well, even there we saw a record high number of independent candidates, and begs the question whether some people have given up on the party political process to actually get them to experience the lived to rather get them to actually realize the hopes and aspirations that they had back in 1993 or the early 1990s when Nelson Mandela was released from prison.
Yeah, something to be said about the crowds that have come. You know, it's a question around whether or not these numbers really are the sort of large numbers that you'd expect at a celebration as big as this one, right? And perhaps we'd hope to see more numbers start to stream in. But massive themes that the president has to address, it's particularly around governance in the country. This is as we see power shifts taking place in so many parts of the country. Aldrin, earlier you were speaking to the acting mayor of Mangaung that has seen leadership shifts there, much as we've seen in Johannesburg and in Tshwane. The president expected also today on this Freedom Day to talk to us about the quality of government that we have, not just at national level, but certainly at provincial and local government as well. Hopefully giving some guidance there on how we start to stabilize things so that we hold on to that promise of 1994. Well, we'll bring you more from those Freedom Day celebrations in Klerksdorp. Stay with us. We take a short break. You're watching The Agenda.